On this episode of FieldLink, National FFA Secretary Grant Norfleet from Missouri and Southeast Regional Vice President Carter Howell from Florida join us to discuss how the nation's largest youth organization is preparing the next generation by strengthening the technical and vocational skills needed to meet the industry's demand for talent. Plus, we sit down with fourth and fifth generation farmers from Guthrie Center, Iowa, Steve and Billy Baulder, as we discuss how they're preparing for generational transition on their farm, and they point out the importance of protecting our soil and water health. Spring is here, and growers from across the nation are busy with spring planting. Unfortunately, those stressful hours can often cause some unforeseen accidents. John Butler from the Agri-Center International in Memphis joins us to talk about Farm Safe, a new program that is promoted by his team to help growers stay safe this season. Finally, Jody Lawrence from Nashville joins us to share the latest commodity market news. Stay tuned for this episode of FieldLink. This episode is brought to you by Grounded. Looking to maximize the efficiency out of your herbicide program this year? Spray smarter. Ask your retailer for Grounded. And welcome to the FieldLink podcast as we're recording in front of a live audience here at the Commodity Classic here in Houston, Texas. So with us today, we have two National FFA officers, and we're super excited to have these two guys here joining us talking about the National FFA. Grant, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you? Where's home?
Yeah, folks. Hi, my name's Grant Norfleet. I'm from Mexico, Missouri, so all the way the Show Me State, currently serving this year as a National FFA Secretary.
Awesome. Welcome, Grant. And you're attending the University of Missouri, is that right?
Yes, sir. MIZ.
MIZ, okay. And also, Carter. Carter's joining us here originally from the state of Florida.
Yeah, I'm originally from the state of Florida. Plant City, Florida is home, but my college experiences looks a little different. I travel about 26 hours away from home. I currently attend South Dakota State University.
Awesome. And what do you study in there, bud?
I study ag business.
Ag business. Awesome. Well, guys, you're just coming off of National FFA Week. It was a huge celebration across the nation as we engaged and really told the FFA story to members as well as prospective students of the FFA. Tell us a little bit about your experience last week.
Sure. So for National FFA Week, I got the opportunity to celebrate in Idaho and Alaska. So two very differing experiences throughout my week. But it was really exciting to see what agriculture looks like more in the northwest portion of the United States, but also get to hear from students and see what they're passionate about. So yes, agriculture does look a little similar up in the northwest, but also very different as well. So getting exciting to see how students are really incorporating agriculture into the unique ways they got back at home.
Awesome. And then Carter, where did you spend FFA Week last week?
Yeah, so FFA Week, I was in Connecticut and Maryland, so made it up to New England and then back down the Eastern Shore to get to Maryland and really kind of hit all the different parts of those states, so it was really unique. Connecticut has 20 FFA chapters. Those are all in regional ag centers, which get strong funding. So one facility I visited at Lyman Hall High School is about a $30 million vocational and CTE program, so extreme funding there for large 6 to 8 teacher programs where those students can really take advantage of the opportunities and SAEs and classroom learning, so really neat to see that. And then Maryland was a blast as well to get to travel across the state and see parts of the country that I haven't visited yet.
A lot of different kinds of agriculture in that Delmarva area.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. The interesting experiences for both of you coming from different wide ranges of backgrounds from agriculture. Let's talk a little bit about what's new and what's going on in the FFA. How is the membership looking right now?
Yeah, so we're in membership. We're coming up on our 100th year anniversary. I know we probably will be beating the dead horse on that one by the time we get to the 100th anniversary, but we're really excited about that. And membership is at an all-time high, about 945,988 members.
Wow.
Across the country is our most recent membership number. Let you in on a little sneak peek. We're going to be pushing a little bit larger than that when we release membership numbers for the upcoming year. So it'll be really big news there. So membership is an all-time high for us as an organization across all 50 states and then Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands as well. So active associations all across the country. It's just a great experience for our members. No matter where you're at, you can find a local FFA chapter. And if there's not one in your community, we're probably working on getting one started there for you to have the opportunity to do that.
That's great. And guys, let's talk a little bit about your experience as national officers this past year. Grant, what was one of the coolest experiences that you got to take part of this year?
So part of the National Officer Program that we get to have an international international agriculture experience. So at the end of January, early February, the team packed up and we moved to Japan for 10 days.
Wow.
And got to experience what international agriculture looks like, get to meet with some folks and discuss agricultural issues across the globe. But also we have a partner and sister organization over there, FFJ, Future Farmers of Japan.
Wow.
So we visited 2 different high schools that focus in agriculture and got to meet their students. So very similar to FFA, got to hang out with those members, learn a little bit more about what they were interested in, and see the parallels and differences between our organizations.
Tell us a little bit, or our listeners, a little bit about some of the agriculture experiences that you guys got to participate in Japan.
Yeah, so, Japan was a really unique experience, and Grant mentioned that we got to go to some of those high schools, but, also see general production agriculture when we were there. So we started in Tokyo and made it all the way down to Kyushu Island, ended in Kagoshima, so we got to see a wide breadth of agriculture. I think one of my personal favorites, and I might be biased as a beef guy, but we got to go to a F1 Wagyu farm, and that was really neat to be able to see. They actually cross Wagyus with Holsteins to layer on some of that marbling on some higher performance, bigger framed cattle.
Wow.
And they finished those about 24 to 30 months. So they are finishing those a little later than we are. But then after that experience, we actually got to go to a local restaurant where they're serving that Wagyu beef. So to be able to do that, kind of a farm to table type experience really in that community was super neat. But then when we ended, I mentioned Kyushu Island, Kagoshima, we got to go to a daikon radish farm. So something that we don't have here in the United States. And these radishes, the biggest one is about 50 pounds. That was the world record. So these are huge radishes. So to get to see that, and it was actually on active volcano. It was an island that we were on. So
oh my God.
Got to go there. It was a pretty exciting experience. And the farmer, I think he's about 90 years old, and he's been farming since he was 18. So he still go through and show us, and we got to harvest some radishes when we were there. So, just super neat experiences on 2 different opposite sides of the spectrum. Something that we have is similar. Wagyu's come to America and entered that market, but then these radishes that are really just found in this one part of the world. So super neat to be able to see all of that.
That's really exciting that you guys got to participate in that international experience. I know when I was in FFA many years ago, by the way, I got the experience to go to and study in Hungary for a half a year and another half a year in Australia, and it really opened up my eyes as I kind of went through my journey as well. So I hope you guys get to continue that journey beyond your Japan experience. So, guys, let's talk about FFA. We've gone, the numbers are certainly there. They're growing. We continue to get more chapters across the nation. Let's talk about how we've transitioned. No, I don't want, transition might be a strong word. How have we done a great job in leadership? We're killing it. Let's talk about the original roots of vocational education and how important that is for your members today.
Certainly. So, those folks that are real familiar with FFA was Future Farmers of America. 1988, switched our name officially to the National FFA Organization to encompass the larger breadth that is the agriculture industry. But we are still rooted in production agriculture at the end of the day. So we've got many programs that are serving students that may not be interested in that, traditional 4-year university path anymore. So 2 of those that come to mind is one is our New Century Farmer Conference. Those are for FFA members and alumni ages 18 to 24. Interested in production agriculture. It gets a like-minded cohort of individuals together to meet individually with sponsors who are really into the production agriculture sector. So students are also getting a plan to develop their overall goal and mission for how they want to impact the agriculture industry productive in a production aspect, but also network with each other, because as young producers, we need that cohort of friendship amongst each other, so we continue to support that. But then also we have a next gen conference, which is our agriculture, food, and natural resource pathways. So over the summer, we wrapped up in North Carolina our power structural systems and technology pathway, where students got to go visit with sponsors in those that are maybe more hands-on, a little bit more technologically in our vocational sector that you mentioned before. And those are students that may or may not be interested in a 4-year degree program. So we're getting them boots on the ground, involved with those companies that are more than likely looking to hire them upon graduation, some experience getting as well.
Grant, I think that's so important. As an industry, we're hungry for talent. And you said it right. Not everybody is ready to go to a 4-year college, and nor do they need to in many cases. We're looking at here at Helena, I know we're happy to bring in young talent that has a good grassroots experience. Maybe they go to a vocational school, get some additional training, but there's plenty of jobs out there for people to begin their career in agriculture. So tell us, as you take a look at some of the evolving areas in the vocational side, what are some newer, I guess, experiences that you guys are very familiar with from an academic standpoint?
Yeah, and I think, vocational education and really the way that's transformed, it's obviously been important, and FFA has been a large part of that for nearly 100 years. But, I think we've seen recently, and if pandemic and if COVID showed us anything, is that we need to be able to have a strong workforce, and that needs to be not only an educated workforce where we have certain individuals that might want to pursue a degree, a 2-year or 4-year degree, but it takes everything, and especially in agriculture. I mean, everything is connected to agriculture, and you think about our companies and manufacturing and all those jobs that are going to be really important. So, FFA is happy to be in that career and technical education space with not only our organization, but many other career and technical student organizations like Skills USA and so many others that are really giving us those skills for our new generation to come up and take those jobs. We talk about an average age of a farmer is getting up in years, the average age of a manufacturer is getting up in years. How can we replenish that workforce with students that are prepared to take on the challenge and meet the future demands of the industry, of the country, to be able to produce goods here in the United States? So, we're happy to be in that space. That space is evolving. I think, we mentioned that we've been good at leadership, and that's been the foundation of FFA for so many years. But vocational education and agriculture is so important to not only have the leadership, but also those technical skills where we're ready to go into the workforce when we're graduated.
Yeah, Carter, I think you're spot on. I think it's a good balance of both. We absolutely need leaders. We need strong leadership out there, and FFA has done a phenomenal job of providing that to our industry, but also supporting those vocational skills. Whether, to your point, if an individual decides to go directly into the workforce or they want to go navigate through a 2 or 4-year college, they're prepared. So, guys, tell us a little bit what's new coming forward in the FFA. What's new on your docket as you prepare? National convention's a little ways away, but do you have some secrets to share with us?
I don't know if we have any secrets or beans to spill quite yet, but Carter and I are gearing up. We're hitting the road on our travel season, so we're really excited to go meet with members at their local state convention. So between the 6 of us on our team, we'll visit all 50 state conventions in the U.S., and so really excited to see what members are doing at the local level and getting to experience that as well. But then also get to visit with our sponsors as well, like here at the Commodity Classic.
Grant, I think that's great. You're going to make all 50 conventions, 50 state conventions, correct? Your team will.
Yes.
Help us out with the balance of 2 of you here today. Tell us about the balance of your team.
So our team is made up of 6, and the national officers are national officer team. There's always 4 regional vice presidents and then 2 officers at large. So I'm currently serving as a Southern Region vice president. We've got an Eastern, a Central, and a Western. And then Grant is serving as our national secretary, and then our teammate Amara is the national president. And between the 6 of us, we kind of cover the entire United States, and we are selected by region, but not necessarily do we spend all the time in our region. So Grant and I are here today. Texas is in the Western region, and neither of us are from that region, but we get to be able to take part in things across the country. And actually, just as we're starting our travel season, Grant and I are here at Commodity Classic in Texas. We've got a teammate at State Convention in Hawaii, Canyon. He's from the Central region. We've got a teammate in Michigan, Amara. She's the national president, and she's at Michigan's convention now. And then we've got Morgan from Ohio. She's back home in Ohio for a conference this weekend. And Emily is in Florida taking care of business down in the South. So, we've all got different things going on right now. And this kind of starts a 4-month period where from March until the end of July, we'll really be on the road. And we project between each national officer, be about 135,000 miles on the road kind of in those 4 months. So it's definitely busy. It's hectic, but what an experience nonetheless to be able to travel across the country.
It's definitely a lot of miles and a lot of nights away from home for sure, but and away from college, I guess. Now, guys, for our listeners that are not familiar with the commitment you guys have from a national standpoint, tell us a bit about college. You both go to Missouri, South Dakota State, but you're taking a break, I'm guessing, for this year.
Yes, so serving as a national officer is no easy feat by any means. So all 6 of us are attending a college respectively, but for this year's service, we've taken a leave of absence from that university. So we'll get to resume our studies in the spring semester of 2025. And so some of us have a semester left, and a few of us may have a little bit more than that. So yes, I'm a student, but we get to take a year off to serve this organization, which is a really great experience we're getting to have.
That's right. So, Carter, tell us a little bit. Your first time here, both of you, I believe, first time at the Commodity Classic here in Houston. Tell us, what's some of the aha moments that you've experienced to this point here at the Commodity Classic?
I just think, I think of all these events that the agriculture industry has, like Commodity Classic, like NCBA Convention and CattleCon, just the opportunity for us to get together and gather, so many companies that are here, so many supporters, so many agriculturalists, just a space of exchange ideas, see what's new in agriculture. I mean, the work that companies like Helena and so many others are doing to truly advance agriculture, and things change every single day. So for our producers to have the opportunity to gather, to see those new technologies, those new products, then to go back and implement on the farm, because, FFA, the future farmers of agriculture, right? The future of farming is places like the Commodity Classic, right? These new technologies and advancements that are coming out, that's going to help us grow that products maybe in a more sustainable way, a better way, higher yields, meeting the demand of a growing population. So, it's just an opportunity to exchange ideas, see those new products, and really get together and camaraderie. I think it's another special part is we not only get to see everything that's going on, but to get back together and see everyone is certainly a great aspect. So I think we've both been thoroughly pleased with our experience here at the Classic for the first time.
That's great. And Carter, we talked a little bit about you're going to Missouri, to Mizzou, and what are you studying there again?
I'm studying agricultural education and leadership.
Okay, great. And your dad's in the vocational education business?
Yes, so my dad teaches diesel technology at the Career Center. So I've been fortunate enough to grow up through an ag program that's attached to a Career Center. So have a real deep roots and passion for career and technical education. My dad is not my ag teacher. I will preface that. He's not an ag educator, but he does teach diesel technology. And that's kind of how I got my start in FFA, because I grew up with the ag classroom right across the hall.
So I bet it's pretty cool to walk around here and see all this equipment out here, tying back to your diesel roots, if you will.
Oh, for sure. I'm want to bring my dad back, for another year, because it's really neat to be here and see all the technologies. But he's the guy that's going to ask the hard-hitting questions at the end of the day. He's the one you don't want here, because he might be trying to drill you with a good question.
Well, it's neat to walk around here and see lots of different equipment and products, as you mentioned, Carter, that are certainly previewed here at the Commodity Classic. A great opportunity for you to also reconnect and bring FFA to many of the growers that are attending here, as well as all the different organizations that certainly support the FFA. So, guys, I want to thank you both for doing what you do, supporting the future of agriculture, helping develop and cultivate those young minds out there across the nation, and supporting our greatest industry of all, agriculture. Thanks for joining us here on the FieldLink podcast. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Commodity Classic in the FieldLink podcast studio. We're excited today to have several guests from us from the state of Iowa. We're going to be sitting down with Steve Baulder and his son, Billy Baulder, from Iowa, as well as Ryan Stephenson here in the podcast studio here at Helena. We're excited to have them all here visiting a little bit about their operation today. And Steve, let's just take a couple seconds and tell us a little bit about you and where's home, and tell us a little bit about your operation.
We're from a small town in southwest Iowa, Fontanelle, and we're a multi-generation farm. So I would be the fourth generation on that farm, and I started right out of high school with a small dairy herd and ran that through the farm crisis. That got me through that, and then in the mid-'80s I was married to my wife, and we started row crop along with the dairy operation, and have been blessed to welcome the fifth generation in.
Yeah, and you've got your fifth generation sitting right next to you here, Billy. Billy, welcome to the FieldLink podcast here in Houston, as we're recording here live at the Commodity Classic. Billy, tell us a little bit about you. How did you get involved in the operation?
Well, as a farm kid, you don't really have a choice. That's, hey, get out there and do these chores and need help. But I've always enjoyed it. Even as a little kid, I had, the Ertl farm set spread out and could play with those for hours. So I've always enjoyed it and just got started, helping Dad, helping Grandpa on the farm, and got a degree at Northwest Missouri State in agriculture. So got a good base there. And when I went through the college process, you learn and experience a lot, especially social skills, but just realized, going through that, I did want to come back to the farm, and that's where I wanted to be, and have been there ever since. It's been my 13th year farming, and have, enjoyed it and couldn't imagine doing anything else.
And I understand the sixth generation is already here. Is that correct?
Yes, there are 10 grandkids in the sixth generation, and 2 boys, 8 girls, but a lot of the girls love running around on the farm and love their horses and doing chores. And I have 3 kids. Our third child is a boy, and for Christmas this year he wanted a sorting stick and a cowboy hat and a lasso. So he seems to appear like he wouldn't mind staying on the farm as well.
Might take
He'd
over
fit
the
in
ring.
just fine down here in Houston at the rodeo, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He won't be happy that he doesn't understand. He's 3 years old, but yeah, he'll see the pictures and he'll maybe not be happy he wasn't there.
That's awesome. Well, guys, it's really that's an amazing story. And Steve, being the 5th generation, I understand it's really important to leave, I don't know, the ground better than you found it. And can you share with us some stories on how you are trying to implement that with Billy to leave what was started 5 generations ago for the next generation or 2?
Well, the main thing that was started 5 generations ago was cattle. We feed a fair amount of cattle, so a lot of the ground is seeded down for alfalfa. We seed down headlands for 2 reasons. One is just for reduce the erosion on the end rows, and the second one is for cattle feed. We utilize all our cattle fertilizer on our ground, so that helps us reduce some fertilizer. I started no-tilling back, the first farm I bought was in 1988, and that's when we started no-tilling, was back then. We've no-tilled ever since. We've started using cover crops, which was all due to Billy. He brought that idea home. So we've utilized cover crops ever since he's been here in 2011. So yeah, we just try to, and we kind of take pride in buying farms that aren't the greatest farm in the neighborhood.
Okay.
But trying to turn them into the greatest farm in the neighborhood with the use of cattle manure and cover crops and conservation.
That's awesome.
So,
and rebuild those.
Right. And Billy's really good at, with the help of Ryan, Billy's really good at getting everything grid sampled and getting the fertility back where it needs to be, and the line back where it needs to be, and everything's VRT'd. And yeah.
They were honored with a award from the Iowa Department of Ag here a couple years ago at the State Fair for Conservationalist of the Year. So they're doing a great job down there, Bill, as far as making sure the soil's where it's supposed to be and leaving it for the next generation of farmers.
And we moved several of our cattle indoors, so we started building hoop buildings in 2012 and moved some of the outdoor cattle into there. So all that is contained and applied where it needs to be.
And Steve, you mentioned cattle. Is this a cow-calf operation at home, or are you background in cattle?
I am a background feedlot guy.
Okay.
My son-in-law, who also works with us, and my daughter, they're also part of the operation. He has a cow herd.
Okay.
And then he also has part of the feedlot. But yeah, he has a cow herd. I've never had a cow herd since I quit milking. But so yeah, we're a finished feedlot basically is what we are.
Okay. Excellent. We're going to shift to Ryan here for a second. Ryan, Steve talked a little bit about how he's implemented a lot of technology to help solve some of these fertility problems and challenges. Can you talk to us a little bit about how Agri-Intelligence has played a role in Steve's operation?
Yes, when you look at southwest Iowa, we have a lot of variability. Really rolly hills to some steep clay side hills. So we've got some terraces, some waterways, different things. So utilizing the grid sampling, taking soil samples, and then variable rating the fertilizer off of those recommendations based upon yield goals and soils. That's probably where it all started. Also doing some variable rate anhydrous recommendations, doing some nitrogen recs, so changing that based upon what soil types are out there and what we want to shoot for yield goals. And then going into overlaying those with a seeding rec, a seed strong rec, where you can layer all that back together and kind of focus it into the Agri-Intelligence wheel and the decisions that we're making there.
Steve, it sounds like some of these tools that we talked about implementing Agri-Intelligence has helped out some of your plans in terms of making better fertility decisions.
Yes, that's true. I guess what I'd like to say about that is, before Billy came back to the farm, I was probably under applying fertilizer, and I think a lot of that was based off of when we did go through the farm crisis and you were just trying to survive and cut back and apply the minimums. So our fertility wasn't that great until Billy came back and took that part over and met up with Ryan, and yeah, they've done a great job. So I leave all that to Billy. I don't really handle any of that anymore.
Yeah. And Billy, obviously going to school at Northwest Missouri State, you were able to take some of the coursework probably in that fertility area. How has the Agri-Intelligence program, I guess, kind of aided you in helping making some of these fertility decisions?
Well, everything's getting technology based, so obviously anything you can do to use that to help you, sift through all the data, all the information can do nothing but help you. There's so many variables that yield by X that that can you look at and make decisions with.
And this year, you guys were some yield winners in your branch. Ryan, these guys won some awards. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, so at our location, we run a high yield challenge loosely associated with the rules that are established through the National Corn Yield Contest. Steve and Billy participated in that here this year, and Billy won on the corn side at 309, I think. Don't quote me on the number, but that's pretty dang close. And also on the bean side was in the winning category, correct, Billy?
All right.
So Steve, he's the bridesmaid here today. He's number 2 on both categories, but I think he doesn't care. He's happy to be here.
I let him win.
There you go. Passing it on, right?
Yep. So we ran that program. This was our 14th year of implementing our high yield challenge program. And so we've refined it a little bit. We've got a few qualifications on how you get into it, but we've had a pretty successful program. We're using that to help drive some of our agronomic decisions, right? So we can take some of the data, planting date and nitrogen applications and fertilizer applied, and we can break that back down and see what worked in the year, and then we can do it multi-yearly to get good information.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what have you learned with those high yield challenges? Doing it for 14 years, surely you've gained some knowledge that you can transition over to guys like Steve and Billy.
Yeah, so we've got we're kind of a little old school. We've got an Excel spreadsheet that is just got all the data crunched into it, and you can come back and break down specifically agronomy data. And that's where I think we struggled as a branch location. We were trying to figure out how to not necessarily look at the stuff from Northwest Missouri or Iowa State or Purdue. How do we make it more local, and how do we use that to drive our customers in an easy way, right? So one thing for us that's hit home, and it's been across the industry, is like soybean plant date, right? So we historically, when I started with Helena, we would plant corn when the weather was fit, and then we'd plant beans whenever that got done. Now, both planters usually leave the shed the same time, or the soybean planter goes out a week before when the weather conditions aren't perfect, but we can drive that. And again, that's not a product thing, right? There's not something we can fix there. That was just free bushels that all we had to do was change our timeline or add a piece of equipment. So that's been something we call it the tabletop, or the teeter-totter of where the plant dates happen. And that's just something that's drove out of our high yield challenge data set that really drives that home.
Billy, you won the high yield challenge contest with soybeans. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you did a little bit different in that contest, maybe compared to the rest of your farm.
I spoke about going to studying at Northwest Missouri State. We had a soil professor named Dr. Jamie Patton, and she was so smart. And her class was extremely tough. You had to work your butt off to get a B, but you learn so much, and it's just really try to focus on soil health, and then kind of I'll echo what the national winners talk about, just getting your nutrient levels to a certain part per million. Really try to focus on that and just feed the crop. Try to do it on every acre, but you're certainly focusing on your high yield plot and just trying to feed that thing everything it can get, and never have a bad day. I don't know if it's ever a real big secret. It's just about doing the little things right and getting everything done. So.
And tell us our listeners, a little bit about the growing season in Fontenelle last year and plant in the 23 year. You guys, it was pretty dry a lot of times. How dry was it?
It seems like we always have moisture to start with. That's even if it is dry, you start out with ample moisture, at least enough to get the crop growing, and then for the last several years, really, we've had these moisture events keep coming because it has been dry, and we were extremely dry. We got the crop planted in great time. I think maybe by May 1st, or the first week of May, everything was in. So that all went really well. And we didn't get much moisture for probably 40, 45 days. And the whole area was really concerned, especially about the corn crop. And the beans were behind. And you just kept thinking, man, tomorrow might be the day that it's really going to go backwards. And we got a rain on maybe June 20th, maybe just a half inch, just enough to keep you going.
Keep it going.
And it rained for about the next month, just enough to give us a great crop. So.
Yeah, we were extremely dry early. We fought some weed control issues in corn crop just because we didn't have residuals get activated and worked in. So in their area, it was a little different than further north, but it was still I would say extremely dry, but caught rain right at the end when we needed it during pollination and grain fill, and finished the crop out well.
Wow, and it's amazing how sometimes it can look really tough, and then one little rain can really take us over the top. Guys, let's talk a little bit about, Steve, you talked about a product that you tried last year called Fast Stand. Tell us a little bit about your experience. We chatted earlier about Fast Stand. What was your experience with that product?
Well, I've always wanted to use starter fertilizer, but I never did because of the time constraints of trying to get everything planted in a timely manner, and it can be hard on your equipment. Our fertility levels are really good now, and we have got a lot of cattle manure in the soil, so I just wanted to get that corn started. I knew once the roots got down there and started taking up all those nutrients, we'd be fine, but I just wanted to jumpstart that thing. And Mark Christensen told me about this at one of Helena's meetings to give this a try. And at first I'm like, how can a little bag the size of a small potato chip bag on a whole box of corn work?
Wow.
But I thought, well, we'll try it. And we tried it on several boxes of corn this spring, and it was amazing. I mean, it was very easy to see the early growth, the pop it had in it, the bigger root systems. That the crop looked great all year long and yielded good. So, and we also replaced, you replace your graphite and your talc with that little thing. And I also thought, well, there's no way there's enough of this in here to lubricate the planter well enough to get all that seed blown back to the individual row units. And not once, the only time I ever had a problem with that was when I was not using Fast Stand, when I was using the traditional graph talc mix. And it didn't happen a lot, but it did happen some. But yeah, when the Fast Stand was in there, amazingly enough, it never had a problem plugging up or blowing that corn back to the individual seed units. So I think this year, Billy decided to maybe use it on all the corn.
We try a lot of different products, every year, and side by side, a lot of them take a lot of them to yield. We didn't take Fast Stand to yield, but it was very few things are that visually apparent,
right,
as Fast Stand was. So we had a box of corn without it and with it in the same field, and they were different hybrids, but just the stark difference with the stuff with the Fast Stand on it was, that can only do good things. So
it's interesting, a product like that, we talked about it a little bit earlier, is the visual aspect. And with products like Fast Stand, it's not just a one-hit wonder. There's lots of things have to work together, but it's when you bring them all together into a system, it certainly can show some serious benefits from a yield perspective. Ryan, any other customer stories as it relates to Fast Stand in your branch last year?
Yeah, actually, Tyler Kim and the other sales rep that works out of the Guthrie Center location, he had a customer split about 400 acres, and he got a call one day, and the customer said, "You gotta come down here and look at this corn. I don't know what's going on, And he had split planted it straight across, basically did the same thing, treated a box of corn and then unboxed corn, and he had planted it. And they took the drone down there and flew across it and did infrared imagery, or near infrared, and they could see the stark difference. The Fast Stand had tasseled about a day and a half earlier, and so that just led all the way up to it, right? So it came out of the ground faster growth straight through the season. When they ended up taking that to yield, it was somewhere around 4 bushel. So it was a really good trial. It was one of the best ones we've had set up as far as that goes, because we had historically struggled a little bit with how to get those split right. And, a lot of times guys were planting a whole field with a box that was treated, and then we'd compare it to the other field that wasn't treated. And that's, not necessarily good data. But this one worked out really, really well, where we had it across 3 different varieties, and across multiple different soil types and different field types, and came back with some really good data that we're utilizing today.
Great, interesting. Steve, let's talk a little bit about 24. Looking forward, here we are. It's March, and you're probably going to plant maybe 30, 40 days from now, potentially. What kind of intentions? What are you planning for as we take a look at 24? Any changes?
No, not really. I mean, we're fortunate that all of our fertilizer has been applied.
Okay.
And since we're all no-till, Billy and a longtime person that works with us, has been with us for 16 years, Chad, they do all the soil. If there's any needs of, fixing some erosion or maybe cleaning out a ditch, and they pretty much have all that done. So as far as changes, like I said, Billy's in charge of that. So not that I know of, but you might want to ask him.
Yeah, Billy?
We pretty much prep everything in the fall, if possible, and that usually isn't a problem. So everything's pretty well prepped, ready to go. We mentioned fast stand. That's a change we're going to implement and use. But yeah, just hopefully planting season goes well, and let Mother Nature take care of the moisture and go from there.
So Ryan, as we're starting to wrap up here, tell us a little bit about the branch. Any big changes coming forward in 24 for you guys?
Yeah, so we've got the 2 branch locations there. Steve and Billy work with me out of Guthrie Center, but we've got another location in Adair as well. So we've got four sales folks, 4 agronomy sales folks that work between the 2 stores. We cover a nice little footprint, 30, 40-mile round trip from each store, so we overlap some there. And of course, Steve and Billy are a little bit further from Guthrie than they are from Adair, but we service it out of Guthrie, and we're pretty easy to get along with there. As far as the branch goes, changes we've had some good personnel moves. We've got a full staff hired up for our application season. We've got butts and seats, for a good way to put it, and good ones at that. So
that's important, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's been a trying part in agriculture, and I think everybody's felt that everywhere. But Steve and Billy are lucky to have enough labor. They've got a really good long-term full-time employee, and then between family, that's who does the rest of it with Jordan, who's not with us today. But that's been a trying part for all of us in ag. But other than that, not a lot of big changes going on in Guthrie and Adair.
Awesome. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for joining us today here on the FieldLink podcast studio here in Houston, Texas. As we wrap up, I want to wish you the best of luck in Plant 24, and we're really excited to see and learn more, Billy, about the 6th generation on your farm in the future. Thanks for joining us. Hey, joining us today in the FieldLink studio is John Butler, and John is the president of the Agri-Center International based here in Memphis. John, welcome to FieldLink.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
John, you guys are doing a tremendous amount of great work at the Agri-Center, and before we dive in today's topic, which is around farm safety, let's just take a couple minutes and talk a little bit about the Agri-Center and some of the highlights that you're doing at the Agri-Center based here in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, I'd love to. I always love sharing our story.
Yeah, tell a little bit about kind of the mission and the goal of the Agri-Center.
Yeah, so we were created as a nonprofit in 1979. So we sit on 1,000 acres right here in Memphis, Tennessee. We're part of the Shelby Farms property, and we're the largest urban farm in the United States. So last year we hosted about 1.5 million visitors. But unlike my farm in northwestern Tennessee, where I may have 3 cars pass my property and they're all 3 lost looking for directions, we'll have about 100,000 cars that pass the farm every day. We've got about 45 companies, about 800 people that work here, and obviously Helena and the Helena Product Group team is one of those great partners. So love the fact you guys are here, and look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you in here today, John. You guys do a tremendous amount of work. We got around 1,000 acres of research out here. Lots of things happening here at the Agri-Center, not to mention, agritourism. There's a ton of stuff going on with the rodeo grounds and the fair and so forth. So lots of great things happening there. But today, let's talk about farm safety. It's springtime. Look, planters are rolling down the road right now. Guys and gals are super busy trying to squeeze crop in between these darn rains that we've had, but it's kind of a love-hate relationship. But safety becomes very important. Tell us a little bit about the Farm Safe program at the Agri-Center.
Yeah, so I think what's really important to start out with is I'm a 5th-generation farmer, so I grew up on a farm in northwestern Tennessee, and we were a diversified row crop and cattle operation. So, when I say I have experienced a lot of near misses, I mean, I know everybody out there can relate to these things. And so farm safety is something that was super important to me as a producer. But as I mentioned to you earlier, my experience, kind of how I got here, a little bit defines the journey. So I worked for Cargill for a couple of years right out of college. And what I found in that experience is, they had all these resources available for us as district managers and managers of different geographies. If we needed a safety instructor or, some type of additional help, we could just call and we could get that resource immediately filled. When I moved back to the family farm, I kind of realized that we were missing that. And so in that journey, 20 years later, I find myself at a nonprofit that's set up to help fill the void and create some value from an industry perspective. And I met with the board early on, my first 6 months, and said, if I can find the funding for it, I'd like to create a nationals. And really, it turned out to be an international safety program. So we do it bilingual. It's both Spanish and English. And we have people from all over the world. It's easy to access. You can go to www.agricenter.org. That's agricenter.org. And you can click on that right drop-down menu and find a farm safety program. And in just a couple of hours from today, hopefully by Friday around 10 o'clock, we'll have a brand new website launch. And that website is going to be farmsafe.org. So you can go to farmsafe.org, and that'll take you right to all the modules. And it's going to be it's super simple. So you can click on one module, maybe bites and stings or heat stress, cold stress, or ATV safety. If you got a couple of kids, you raised them on the farm like I did, they need to always hear how to operate equipment, especially ATVs and side-by-sides. So 20 minutes, if you can make them sit down for 20 minutes, which always a little bit of a challenge.
Well, you can do it on their cell phone today, right?
Yeah. But get them sit down for 20 minutes, go through it. There's a post test, and they're going to learn a lot. And what we have found, once somebody goes through, like they sit down with their team members or their family and they go through one module, they pretty much go through almost all of them.
Yeah.
And even if they're not in, so we have modules that are specific to, vegetable production or forestry or, operation safety, just moving tractors down a road. I mean, how challenging is it sometimes in some of our urban areas to move equipment down a road, especially as it's gotten wider and wider over the years. And then we all know sometimes our non-farm friends are not very patient,
Sure.
They don't want to wait behind a piece of equipment just to get it off the road. So, we all have to be aware of what that looks like. And we absolutely have had tremendous feedback. So we love it.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of diverse content in there. And if you think about the average grower today, they may have, some people coming to work on their farm that maybe haven't worked or been exposed to all aspects of agriculture. There may be some training modules that are really cookie cutter and ready for them to go, but can be applied instantly.
Yeah, so I can tell you what I did when I was trying to staff my farm. We had a fairly small team, somewhere between 6 and 9, depending on the type of the year or the season. Harvest and planting was always geared up pretty good. But we hired a lot of part-time help that maybe were really good at what they did. Maybe they drove a truck or they worked at the fire station or they were a policeman or a policewoman. But they maybe didn't have a whole lot of experience on a farm, but they were looking for a side hustle. And so we end up hiring a lot of those guys and gals, and I could see where this will be very valuable content and really valuable information on the front end. And then sometime in between, and then, obviously, there's never a bad day to make it safer.
Right. And I think that's the big key that you talked about. It's different if you're a multi-billion-dollar organization with all these resources, but if you're a family farm, if you've got one employee, or if you have 20, it sounds like FarmSafe has a great toolkit for you to reach out and have resources for.
Yeah, and it's super simple. So you can find it, at farmsafe.org, and then you can either request to have an instructor take you through the modules, or you can self-guide yourself through the modules themselves. And again, each module is designed to be taken within 20 minutes. So you'll get a little certificate at the end of it that acknowledges your completion of that module. And so we really believe long-term that we'll have some additional, I guess you would say, optics around the, approval and passing of those things. But right now it's set up, simple, easy to do. It's, really a lot of information, and it's easy digestible. So we intentionally made it where it's something that can be easily passed on and disseminated through everybody.
Right. And I think that accessibility, simple, is a good thing, especially, when we're dealing with a wide range of
I
of
love
players.
simple. I'm not the sharpest stick in the toolbox, and I like simple, brother.
Man, I agree with you. You got to avoid the world of logins, my goodness. And this might be a great resource for our listeners out there. And, it's not just really geared towards producers. It certainly is. But if you're an 4-H leader, if you're an FFA advisor, what an opportunity to engage this kind of content to that audience.
Yeah, we can see a lot of the folks that take our modules, and it is a lot of classroom and group settings. As we were talking earlier, we've even got a couple of churches that do it on Wednesday night because they like the fact that it creates, some advantages and helpfulness around their congregation. And so it's really designed for both general and specific, depending on what your interests are. And it's super easy to go through. 20 minutes. So our motto is you invest 20 minutes for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So the culture of creating a safer experience for all, just because we all, for farming long, we've all heard of, or maybe even unfortunately been a part of, a farm accident that could be very serious. And so this really, not only does it help save lives, but it helps create awareness that hopefully keeps people out of a bad situation.
Well, what's really unique is today you've got between 22 and 24 modules, and that's always growing, I'm sure. If you did one a month, you've got 2 years of content that you can roll through and creating a cadence for maybe the employees.
Yeah, so I can tell you what we did when we first started about 6 years ago. We actually sat down in the morning with our operations team, and then we felt like we were leaving some people out. So we just had full team meetings every Friday morning at 8 o'clock and set everybody in a classroom setting and went through a module. And, we did our own internal training, and that's how we used the beta test to figure out if we had the right cadence, the right speed, the right volume. We used our own team to kind of go through that, and got some great feedback. And I will say this, on the initial development, the grants we received totaled up to about $2 million.
Wow.
And so when you go through it, you're gonna be, I think, immediately impressed with the quality, the digestibility of it. It's easy to get people through. Again, it's bilingual. We always have a lot of folks that are helping us that are Spanish speaking, and so I've learned a little Spanish, but I'm not fluent in Spanish, and so we acknowledge, especially here in the Southeast, that we need to have the ability to hit both Spanish and English speaking guys and gals. And it just works. When it works, it works.
Right.
And this has been a home run for us. So as a nonprofit in this space, trying to advance the industry forward, we feel like it's just been an incredible investment for us, and we're super thrilled with the feedback we're getting from all of our constituents.
Well, it's farmsafe.org. Definitely check that website out, or check out Agricenter.org as well. Definitely reach out. I believe is that right?
Yeah.
Agricenter.org.
Absolutely.
Check it out. Lots of great stuff happening here at the Agri-Center International here in Memphis, but FarmSafe is one of the key pillars that y'all been working on, and it's something that's going to impact growers and as well as folks in the community across the nation. Thanks for joining us on this episode of FieldLink. And joining us from Nashville is our host, commodity expert, Jody Lawrence. Jody, welcome to FieldLink.
Bill, good to be back as we sit here on April 15th, where you got planters rolling and a lot of people frantically filing extensions and finishing tax returns. It's kind of one of those watershed days. Everybody, April 15th is always an important day, whether you want to admit it or not.
Well, definitely it's tax day here, April 15th. Also kind of a key day for a lot of growers across the country based on crop insurance. Jody, what's so critical about this day as it relates to crop insurance?
Well, the two big days when you talk about planting that the crop insurance companies put out there for a huge portion of the Midwest, that they cannot plant corn before April 10th. or April 15th, depending on where you are, and still be covered by certain prevent plant and other types of policy coverage. So April 15th, especially when you look at the warm, dry weather that the Midwest has enjoyed, at least for basically the last 4 or 5 days. I imagine that when the clock hit midnight last night, there were a lot of people in some of those states hitting it hard to get some in before this good rain comes back this weekend. Although the weather's going to cool off a little bit, I don't think it doesn't look dramatically cooler to where it'll take soil temperatures lower and anybody has to worry about seed sitting in the ground for too long.
Yeah,
But
and it definitely a little different story as you get down south into the Delta and different parts of the southeast United States. Jody, we've got some reports. Some of our folks down in Louisiana are talking they've had 10 inches of rain in a handful of days. Boy, game has definitely changed in the southern planting intentions this year.
yes, that's going to be something we're going to pay close attention to. And the problem with the market, because certainly no disrespect for me because I travel that area and know a lot of people that grow down there. Corn area, when you start talking about East Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, West Tennessee, certainly has gotten plenty of rain. That the big market picture is that the market just does not take or build too much concern in when they're talking about acreage shift down here until we start to see the numbers. And those numbers, we can have an idea what they're going to do, but we won't know until the USDA June planted acreage report. And, if the Midwest doesn't add acres like we always expect when the weather's good, you could lose, 750,000 to a million acres in the Delta switching from corn to beans. And then all of a sudden that does become significant because that's 180 million bushels right off the bottom line. So we'll keep an eye on it. But as of right now, major corn production states of the Midwest are off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, just like I say, a lot of growers are going to be transitioning from corn to cotton and soybeans in that southern market for sure. So something for growers to keep an eye on. Jody, recently we had the WASDE report come out last week. Some ho-hum news there. What's your insight from that report?
Well, really, I think it's the market's continuing, or part of the market, frustration with the USDA's stubbornness to either give better insight to why they are so far ahead of or above Brazil's estimate for that bean crop and their corn crop. That, the report came out where USDA said that Brazil's corn production was 124 million metric tons, while Brazil's own CONAB has it as 111. And 13 million metric tons, that's roughly 40 million a metric ton. 400 to 500 million bushels of corn would be a huge, that's at least 25 to 35 cents in world cash price if it got admitted. And the thing I think that's frustrating, if all the other private analysts and even some of the Brazil Soybean Growers Association type of entities, if they weren't so much closer to CONAB and they were all closer to USDA, then there really wouldn't be kind of this head scratching over disparity there. And when you talk about the bean crop estimate, you've got CONAB at 146.5 million metric tons, while the USDA didn't even move it from their March estimate at 155. And at 8.5 million metric ton of beans is right at 36 million. You start talking about 250 to 300 million bushels, which potentially, if that was just taken off the world balance sheet, could be worth $1 very easily when you look at how great the margins are to crush beans and some of the things that are coming on the landscape on the horizon to really keep bean demand in good shape. So still some concern there. Brazil's bean harvest is over 80%, probably be over 85% by the end of this week. And USDA, when it comes to the May report, if they're not going to make much of an adjustment after the May report. So I think everybody in the market's kind of feeling like the USDA is dug in, that they have had some statistical differences over the past 4 or 5 years with CONAB, that the USDA is going to put out their number, and they're going to let the world cash market sort out the rest.
And kind of drawing a line in the sand, so to speak. Jody, over the weekend, some sad news coming in across the news wire as the Iranians, taking a full blunt attack on Israel, around 300 drones and missiles coming across there. After everything was said and done, though, you thought that the oil market certainly would be impacted, considering that the U.S. supported Israel, as did France and England, the U.K. But boy, it really didn't impact that oil market like I guess I thought it should.
No, as we talk right here at 3:14 Central Time, crude is unchanged on the day and was only up about 50 at one point overnight and down about $1 a barrel at one point during the trade. I think the most noticeable impact is that the Dow was trading higher early and traded down as much as 350 today. I think you've got world investors becoming more concerned about Israel's planning, whatever that retaliation is going to be, because what they have shown so far is that Israel does not do half measures on their retaliation. So it's going to remain volatile, and it'll be a lot of midnight to 4 a.m. headline news type of market movements that while we're asleep, we may wake up to a completely different price outlook and price landscape than when we went to bed with one of these days. If crude oil all of a sudden takes off, I saw several analysts talk about $95 to $100 a barrel, and where we sit here in this $82 to $85 range. And if you do not have any hedge, any fuel purchases made and are running kind of low heading into planting, then you might better be safe than sorry here, because we certainly know how quickly crude can move up and how quickly diesel on and off road would move with it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, considering, to your point, the Israelis, when they retaliate, they come at you hard. And that certainly could impact, if they go at Iran, it could just close some of those oil fields down and it's really create some question marks on the global market scale. And, I just don't know if the world's ready for all of that from an oil perspective. So to your point, good opportunity for growers to take advantage of that marketplace right now.
Yeah, it's just, I think so many things going on right now in the world. You've got to adopt a better safe than sorry, and it may not be the lowest price you could have gotten it over the spring or summer, but you just don't want to be on the alternative side of that where you're paying up at a real premium because of what's happening in the Middle East.
Definitely a lot of uncertainty globally as it relates to that area. So take advantage of that if you can. Jody, I want to thank you for joining us here today on FieldLink for this insight. As we stand back and get ready for Plant 24 and planters get to rolling, great opportunity to take advantage of some prices, but also some energy prices. Thanks for joining us, Jody.
Absolutely, Bill, and everybody that's listening, please be careful. Farming is dangerous enough as it is, but much less once you start getting into the field with the big machinery. So everybody be careful through the process, please.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of FieldLink. Be sure to stay safe out there this spring and check out all of our FieldLink episodes wherever you get your podcasts.